Hi. I was going to carry on with some Evercade stuff because I've got 4 carts left that I haven't done a wee Let's Play for. But I recently came into possession of a couple of Bespoke, one that's truly Bespoke, and one that's, you know, I don't know what you'd call these. I guess independently produced controllers, arcade controllers I should note, because they have arcade parts in them. Both USB and DB9 serial, suitable for use with Atari 2600, 7800 consoles and things that act like those. So I wanted to kind of show them off a bit. One of the things about retro gaming is trying to balance cost with benefit, I guess, for want of a better term. So most of what I'm doing, I prefer things on a console. I prefer something I don't have to dick around with, finding apps, finding ROMs. I don't like doing any of that. Not just because of the risk, because of like potential dodgy websites and getting a virus, but it's just, I just don't find it super interesting. It's a means to an end. But the fact is, especially for arcade games, there's a ton of them that you can't play otherwise. I mean, you're not going to find the old machines. Some of them were, you know, upgrade kits, so you'd be, what, having a stack of PCBs and then a cabinet that would work with them. I mean, JAMA-style machines that became popular in the 80s, no problem. You open the thing up, you take it out. But I don't have space for something like that. And then you have things like MAME cabinets, and they tend to cost a lot. Have a bunch of preloaded stuff, you know, and I like to curate. I don't want something with 2,000 games or 4,000 games or whatever, where it's like infinite numbers of clones and other things. There's specific games I like. My collection of arcade games in ROM format is 100 and something, maybe. But the main thing is, how do you play, right? And out of the box, most of the stuff on a PC or Mac is going to use some kind of a standard controller, like a Xbox controller or a PlayStation controller. I've hung on to one of my PS4 gamepads solely for that purpose, for games where a twin stick option with readily accessible buttons is, you know, what I need. Some of these controllers have 2 sticks, but they're not really conducive to that. Or you could try, and I have tried, but nah. So there are still games that I would want an actual gamepad for. But these things scratch the itch for the majority of what I own, and so I don't really feel like, you know, I mean, I'm sure I'd have to charge the PS4 gamepad again because it just sits in a drawer most of the time. But the thing is that short of buying a cabinet, short of buying a very expensive commercial product, like one of those really giant twin stick fighting, you know, things, which I'm not really into arcade fighters that much to invest in that. Those things are built at scale. They cost a lot of money, but if you're going to spend that kind of money, I feel like get something that's supporting like a small biz, and that's something that you can maybe get customized quite easily yourself and not spend like silly amounts of money on. I mean, these things aren't cheap, don't get me wrong, but they're not like $1,000. So, and having like a little bit of authentic control interface, even if you're running through an emulator, can make a big difference in the experience. Not just about nostalgia, but actually just enjoying it, being able to play properly. So, without further ado, let me introduce them. So I got 6 of these controllers, all told, from 2 different companies. One is LayerFab in the UK. You can find them on eBay and Etsy. And the other one is RetroGameBoyz from the United States, who has his own shop front and everything. Now, LayerFab is not focused on game stuff, to be clear. You know, that's like a more general kind of printing biz. But as a side hustle, there's like some interesting control decks. They're fairly specialized. And the guy who runs LayerFab, I've inquired, he doesn't do bespoke stuff. He has like a few set things that he does. He has one available at any one time, so you can buy it. and when he sells it, he'll then make another one, and that's it. So those tend to be a bit more specialized. RetroGameBoyz is more like, that's basically his biz, kind of. I don't know if he has a day, you know, the guy who was behind RetroGameBoyz has a day job that's beyond that or not, but he has a array of things that are not just Atari related and arcade related, but you know, he has a ColecoVision controller that has a built-in keypad. In both cases, we're talking about, you know, the state of the art of 3D printing is such that you can get things that look really nice and have a degree of customization. Now, RetroGameBoyz will do bespoke stuff. He will do custom stuff. It will cost more than his regular jazz, but he takes the time to prototype and, you know, show videos, and all this is quite a lengthy process of him testing and asking about button layout and how do I want this thing to look, and, you know, he made a prototype and he tested it out and he sold that, and then he made me a final one, and, you know, it's a process, but it's cool, and I get something that is unique to me that otherwise I wouldn't be building myself. I have had a stab at that in the mid-90s. I did build an arcade, a custom arcade controller for my Atari Jaguar. I built a spinner to play with Minter's hidden spinner code in Tempest 2000 on the Jaguar. With a friend, you know, that was with a friend of mine who's an electrician or electronics engineer, and I built myself an arcade stick for my Sony PlayStation. But this is, you know, I don't have the patience for that anymore, and I sure as hell don't have the talent that these guys have. So without further ado, let's go into the detail. I'll play some MAME stuff and maybe some Atari stuff later, just for funsies. But you know, mostly I'm just like, hey, look at the quality of this stuff. So LayerFab, he tends to have the cords connected. Sometimes he'll do it. He does like a notch in the back. There's some kind of grommet in there that's holding the cord in place, but you do have a cord hanging off. This is the Asteroids layout. It's an all-button controller. It is labeled like an Asteroids control panel. Rotate left, rotate right, hyperspace. He's got player 1, 2, start. These don't light up, but this is, I think, is the coolest feature. He has an insert coin button. This does illuminate. This one, and when you're dealing with these, one of the things you're going to have to cope with possibly is the vagaries of how they're set up. They tend to have like some kind of USB controller on the inside if they're USB based. So the pinouts being used and what the controller presents as is a factor potentially in how these things are seen by your system. Now, for a Windows user, these things tend to be, the guys who build them are programming them with Windows, so they're assigning functions. You know, they're programming the actual chips in the controller. If you're on a Mac, you can get a piece of software. I can't remember what it's called, but you can get it on a trial basis from the Mac App Store that will let you map functions to an attached controller. You can map keyboard keys, which should achieve what you want to do. But I prefer to have it, the system can see it, and in MAME to just let MAME see it as whatever the heck it sees it as. Although you do get some weird things, like player 1 start and player 2 start will show up as like, you know, right joystick, you know, left or something like that. It'll be something goofy like that, but I was able to map them and it's fine. Now, when I was originally looking at this one, I looked at this one for a long time before I decided to pull the trigger on it. Oh, and there's the LayerFab logo on the back. Because I'm like, well, why would I want, and you might be asking, well, why would you want an Asteroids themed control pad, control deck, controller, whatever you want to call it? You know, there's only 3 games that actually use this layout: Asteroids, Asteroids Deluxe, and Space Duel. That actually had this 5-button configuration. You can play Blasteroids with this, although that game used a dial and three buttons rather than rotate left and rotate right buttons. But you can play that and configure it to use digital inputs. But the fact is, this is useful for far beyond that, because in the early days of arcade shooters, you had, you know, the granddaddy Space Invaders. which had a 3-button control, you know, left, right, fire. Galaga and Galaxian both used a 2-way X-axis joystick and a fire button, as did, I think actually Astroblast from Sega Gremlin also used a 4-button layout for it, you know, left, right, or left and right, and fire, and the slow-mo button. But there's a number of games. Star Castles, again, I think used like a 3-button layout, or 4-button layout rather. Rotate left, rotate right, thrust, fire. So there's a bunch of games that you can actually play with this. Now, you know, would I want to use this instead of a joypad, you know, a D-pad? Maybe. I mean, I like the feel of it. The deck is big enough that I can rest my hands on it. I'll probably see if I can do it, you know, and, you know, I'm not like a very small-handed person, so that's kind of important. The edges are rounded, it's comfortable, and it's compact. It's not huge. The cord is long enough. I have a USB hub connected to my computer, so I can plug it in there, and it works a treat. Now, also from LayerFab, now this one is very specialized. This was what caught my attention originally, because I really want a replica. There's a company in the UK that makes replica Defender machines with a flat panel display. Only plays Defender. A couple grand, I would totally own one already, but I don't really have the space for it. I've been looking at my lounge going and thinking, what can I move around to make this work? But I'm not feeling it just yet. We'll see. But this deck is a Defender layout. The only difference being that he's added an Inviso button. So you can play Defender or Stargate. It's got the extra button for Inviso, so you can play Stargate or Defender 2 as well. The joystick, I have a gate on it that he supplied, so it's only 2-way. I could take that off and use it as a 4-way and use these buttons to play other games, but I want it just to play Defender. I don't want side-to-side or diagonals. I wish the stick was a little bit shorter, so it'd be more like a Defender, you know, machine. And also, I've been playing with a gamepad for so long, it takes me a while to get used to, you know, hitting the reverse. The buttons are a little bit smaller, but they've got good action, and you get the nice colors, and you can fit them all in quite handily. This is a zippy joystick. You can hear the micro clickers underneath. And we've got 1 and 2 player, and again, the signature insert coin button. Brilliant. So I really, that was the first thing that drew me to LayerFab. But the second thing I bought was this. Another zippy joystick, but look at this cutie. It's a little, this is an Atari 2600 stick. You might see the 2 buttons and think, oh, you know, cool, 78, but no, unfortunately. I wish it was using a 7800 controller inside, but it is not. So this is the second button on the outside is strictly used in 2600 games with 2-button play. Well, what is that? Well, there's some homebrew games that use 2 buttons. Other than that, I'm unaware of any. I know that there is CBS Electronics did some a couple games, I think, that used something called a boost grip, which was a device that you plugged. It sat on top of the joystick and had a button on it, and I can't remember if, and some kind of a yoke or some kind of joystick plugged into your console, and then you added a second and possibly a third button. I can't remember exactly. And maybe this would work with that. I honestly don't know. I honestly don't care. So, so the extra button is superfluous to me. But I did want something with this arcade stick, and playing a game like Ms. Pac-Man or Junior Pac-Man, brilliant. It's got a nice long DB9 cord on it. Again, a zippy joystick. My one complaint about this, and I do like the look, it's got the wood grain front panel, it's got Atari and silver on it. Please don't come after them, because the guy is not like, you know, selling this in Argos or department stores or anything. Strictly a made-to-order item. But my issue with it is that the edges are super sharp on it. I mean, his other stuff, they're fairly rounded. They're also big enough to rest your hands on. This is much more compact. So I can, you know, if I rest on the corners, it would really cut into my hand, you know, even the sides. So what I did was, you might not, I don't know if you can see, I got this super narrow window insulation foam and just put a strip on the top. I'm not overjoyed with it. It doesn't look awful, but it does mean that I can rest my hand there. And I have, you know, said, hey, you know, you might want to think about widening it a little bit so that you can rest your hands without getting your, you know, your palms having these corners embedded in them. But it is great. It's very compact. It's, you know, it's got the feet on the bottom. It's a great wee stick. I like having this. This is my primary Atari 2600 controller now. You know, it's a far better feel than the CX78 gamepads. I'll tell you that. It's a lot more precise. Right, so that's LayerFab. On the other side, up the pond, we have RetroGameBoyz with a Z at the end, who doesn't put his logo on it, and you should, you know. This is some great work here. So the first thing I got from him is I had Robotron. I picked up a copy of Robotron for the 7800. And found out, oh, it does a dual stick interface where you connect two ProLine sticks, and you could buy back in the day this little bracket just for this game. It's the only twin-stick game that was officially released during the lifespan of the 7800. There's others, I guess. I have no experience with them. But there, you know, there's some homebrew games I think that support twin-stick play. So I had, so he made a joypad that basically has a 7800 compatible thing inside of it, and then an additional player, you know, second controller, just the D-pad. So you get two little D-pads and then two little buttons in between. So anyway, that gamepad I showed off when I was did a Let's Play in my Robotron video, and for the 7800, and it works fine. What I've gotten recently is what he came out with this a few months ago, is this kind of awesome beast that is a proper like Robotron thing, and again he's using the marquee logo from the arcade game on it. You know, he's got labels, fire and move and fire. The two buttons in the middle. This is in fact a 7800 compatible 2-button. And really long, beefy serial cables. I played, I got this one in the post Thursday, I think it was, and I played the 7800 version of Robotron with it, and wow, I mean, just, you can hear the micro clickers. It is flawless. It just was amazing. In fact, intermediate difficulty of 7800 Robotron is way too easy for me. I scored well over 1 million points using this stick. And then I went and tried a proper 2-button game. What did I play? It wasn't Ninja Golf. Oh, Commando. And, you know, again, brilliant. I didn't have any of the stuff I had. You know, it's not wireless, so I didn't have any of the weirdness with the wireless, you know, you know, secondary button press, and wasn't throwing grenades all over the place, so that was nice. But again, it's well made, rounded sides, it's angled, it's just, you know, so this is one, so I've got like a second arcade controller. I don't know if these are zippy sticks, I think they are, but the red top, and just really great stuff, really quality. That thing I think is, I want to say it's somewhere north of $100 US. And the first one that I bought from him that was arcade-like was another, this is a USB controller, Robotron. It's got 2 fire buttons on it. It's also got buttons on the side. So these ones I've got configured for like coin 1, coin 2. Obviously the left stick can be used for anything. These are just 2 action buttons. And we've got fire as well. I have used this to play Robotron, obviously, but I've also used it to try to play Battlezone. It's okay, you know, I can hit one of the side buttons for fire, but it is a little awkward. It's not as great an experience as just using a gamepad and being able to hit like R1 or R2, having your finger on it all the time. And so there might be some, Crazy Climber and the sequel, Crazy Climber 2. Those are just, twin stick. That will work fine too. So again, kind of specialized. One of the things that I like about the USB controllers that RetroGameBoyz does is he likes the clean wireless look. So this is a USB B-type connector here. So you'll use like a USB printer cable to plug it in to your computer or, a hub or something like that. Works great, detach, put away. I leave the cable plugged into my hub all the time. I don't play arcade games that much on MAME because I don't like having to boot a computer just to play some games, but occasionally I get the bug, and when I do, I like to have like this. Now the last and best, which is the thing that I will probably end up actually, the rest of these I don't feel the need to demo really. I mean, they're arcade games, whatever, the controllers, you're not really going to see any action on them. But the one that does have stuff that I want to show up, this is the actual Bespoke controller that I wrote him about. I'd asked the fella at LayerFab, and he was like, look, I don't do that. This is a side hustle. I don't have time to be making like custom controllers or anything. So if you like what I got, buy it. Otherwise, you'll need to look somewhere else. So I reached out to Michael at RetroGameBoyz and said, hey man, you know what I would really like above all else would be a spinner deck. Now, LayerFab has a spinner controller, by the way. It's got Atari Tempest graphics on it, and I was tempted by it, but it only has 2 buttons. Because the guts of a spinner, if you get like a spinner, I mean, one that's like affordable enough that you could use to make some kind of bespoke deck, it is basically a 2-button mouse with just an X-axis. I mean, that's how computers interpret it. It's still got an encoding wheel and all that kind of jazz. But if you're hooking up to a computer, it is, the computer sees it as a mouse that only has left-right, basically. So. And the harness for it, or the controller for it, is only supporting two buttons. So if you wanted to add more buttons, you'd have to have a second controller. So when I contacted RetroGameBoyz, I said, well, I want at least 4 buttons, because one of the games that I really wanted to play with the spinner, obviously I want to play Tempest, but I also wanted to be able to play Blasteroids, which is a 3-button layout, and I wanted to play Star Trek, Sega's arcade Star Trek game, which I love. I have it on the 2600. It's on a Let's Play video. Really good port for the 2600, surprisingly. Sega did a great job with that. But the arcade game used a spinner controller for the ship rotation. And there's a surprising number of other games that do that as well. I think it's called Cosmic Tunnel uses a spinner. Blasteroids, Atari Blasteroids, they dispense with the left-right button, and they use a spinner for that. You can, in fact, I found, use a spinner. You can't do this vice versa. You can use a spinner to replace a potentiometer, and I think it's possibly because of the way that, again, it's the computer interpretation of it. The computer is interpreting all analog devices are pretty interchangeable. From the computer perspective, you can use an analog thumbstick, or you can use a trackball, or you can use a mouse. And so a spinner looks like a mouse with one axis, as I've said. So as a consequence, you have something with a potentiometer. I mean, you could have a paddle. You can, MAME does, in fact, if you go into analog controls, it does say paddle. But you can use a single axis analog device for a paddle. So you can use a spinner to play something like Super Breakout. Arkanoid, I think, actually did use a spinner in the arcade. Surprisingly, even though it looks like it would, because it is like a Breakout type game, so you'd think it was a paddle, but no, it's not. And I found a number of other games that surprised me that used an analog control to do a rotation of an on-screen character. So there's quite a few games that use a spinner, actually, which was cool. So not as limited a device, not as limited application as this, and 100% not as limited as this. But I had him build this. Because, and the joystick originally, I didn't really care if there was a joystick. I just wanted a spinner. But, it was explained to me that basically if you want more than 2 buttons, you've got to have 2 USB controllers inside, which would mean that the other USB controller, which could control a joystick, is just being used to control buttons. And isn't that a waste? And wouldn't it be better too? And I said, you know what? I have this Robotron stick. It's got 2 buttons, but there are some games that use more than 2 buttons. So having a controller with a joystick and having multiple, in this case, 5 face buttons and a side button. This one I'll get into in a bit. I've got ones, these are labeled Player 1 and Coin, which is great because that's what I use them for. Because of the way this is set up, there are 2 boards inside, so he has them connected up to a USB, male USB port on the outside that sticks out a bit, and then you connect it with a USB extension cable, a female to male, for the connection. Now this is a mode button. So what's the mode button? Well, the mode button, this was intended because to aid in compatibility with Evercade. So mode basically, I think, there must have been a change in the recent update to the Evercade to make it more broadly compatible with USB, what I would refer to as a HID, a human interface device. But I guess now we're calling them X series or X type or whatever. They're like based around the Microsoft Xbox controller. I guess that's like a standard now of some kind. So, that kind of driver or something like that on consoles and such. And so, but the Evercade, I tried using this, for example, with the Evercade, and it was like, nope, don't know what that is. So the mode button was basically because what the Evercade used to do, what it apparently was looking at when you connected a dual stick device, or some kind of digital joystick, a USB controller like this, it would view if it saw something, it would only work, the joystick wouldn't work unless it was presented using hat switch configuration. So, and if you're not familiar with that, it effectively acts like a little D-pad, right, on top. So that's what the Evercade would see, and it would work. So this basically says, you press this button, and this will switch from being a joystick to a hat switch to work with the Evercade. But what I found when I plugged into the Evercade was, it didn't care what the hell this button said, and this worked awesome. It worked great with the Evercade, just as is. And I'm like, oh boy, if we get, if mouse supports get added to things like Super Breakout, and I don't have the Atari Collection 1 anymore, but I'm hoping they're going to reissue, as they've just put out a fresh batch of Technos Arcade Collection 1 cards. So Funstock has those now if you're in the UK. By the way, just as an aside. But I'm hoping that this would actually work suddenly, because it would be detected like a mouse. The Evercade, interestingly, will not boot with this thing in port 1. You have to have an Evercade controller in there, but once it's up and running, you can control pretty much everything with this stick. Or I can control everything with this stick. And the buttons, cool, it was very cool to find that Coin mapped to select and Player 1 to start without my doing anything, which is, of course, the default select and start, or used to insert coin and start on arcade games. And I played Berserk with this quite handily. There was a little bit of trial and error for what of these buttons was the B button for fire and stuff like that, and I probably could have just gone and done the button remap. But this is great. So I've got this arcade stick that I can use to play arcade games on my Mac and MAME. I got a spinner controller I can use to play these things, and I can use it in Evercade to play my arcade games or any other games. So that's the controllers. These guys are absolutely worth a look, especially RetroGameBoyz if you want some bespoke things. Now that he's actually made this, he may in fact be offering this device online. I have suggested to him and to LayerFab the idea of a trackball. Again, I don't know what that would look like. I mean, these are, remember, these are small operators. So, for RetroGameBoyz, this was basically the spinner that he could get cheap off of, or not cheap, but, affordably enough on Amazon in the US to make this project happen. And then, you know, LayerFab also said, yeah, I've been thinking about doing a, you know, a trackball. But I'm like, you know, if you're going to do a trackball, you got to have 3 buttons. I mean, if you can't play Missile Command with it, I don't see what the point is, to be honest. But again, it depends on, well, what's the USB controller going to be like? What that you can get for it? Is it going to be a 2-button, like the spinner controller? In which case, you know, I'm like, well, hey, if it means getting another joystick, the controller with a joystick and a trackball, sure, you know, I'll do that for, you know, whatever it ended up being, like $150, $175, whatever it was. I mean, that, to me, worth it. You can get like an X series or whatever it was called. I can't remember. There's some big ass honking dual stick, you know, arcade controller that I don't even know if you can get, if they're available anymore. And that was like, I want to say $1,000, but I mean, it was a really expensive piece of kit. These, by comparison, are very affordable. They look nice, and they control well. And it's just really like, what are you trying to do, and what kind of experience do you want, and how important is it for authenticity? So, without further ado, I'm going to give a little demo of this. Specifically, I'm going to be looking at spinner games. Most of them work just fine. I mean, the out-of-the-box configuration for the analog inputs is great. There are games like Tempest where you do have to make adjustments, though, because the default MAME config is no bueno. It's too sensitive, and you'll get better results if you do a few tweaks. So, let's play some old arcade games. This is an old Atari Games machine, by the way. After the breakup of Atari Games and Atari Corp. So, input this machine. So, the paddles, let's see. So, increase and decrease. So that's pedals. Now it does do a dialogue and, you know, the dial. Now the buttons here are for turning on your siren, and I can't remember what the second one is. I haven't gotten far enough to decide. I think if I do this, I'm going to try configuring this to use arcade buttons instead. And so put the brakes on, we'll do 4. And I don't know what button 2 is, but we'll set it to be that one. I don't think I'll have need for it, but we'll find out. And unpause. Alright, so now I can do this. Now, interestingly, if I didn't map those controls to digital for the accelerator and the brake, what would happen is this thing would just drive full tilt all the time, which I actually didn't find to be too bad, to be honest. You sure could use a donut. Okay, there we go. Not bad. Yeah, I get it. But this was kind of a fun game, just kind of just goofy arcade. Okay. Whoops. Oh, and I smashed into some bushes. So you see up in the upper right, you get demerits every time you crash. It says to return to the station, but you don't really need to. This is cool. I've never done a detour before. I found some money just lying there. Much a deeper game than I would have thought. Oh, you gotta get Freddy Freak now in his flowery van. I guess he's a nefarious so-and-so. Oh. Whoa, whoa. You get too many demerits, it's game over. You don't got flat lives or anything. Oof. Hey, wait a minute, you threw dynamite at me. I shouldn't get a demerit. I got, you know, the perp went and actually smashed my car. Give me a break, buddy. Ugh. Ah! Alright, this isn't going to end well for me. Unfortunately, the cable that I have here is not long enough for me to put this in my lap. That's why I'm having to crouch forward and use this little ottoman that has a reversible top on it. Anyway, that's APB. Alright, not an ideal demo of what this is about. So let's look at Arkanoid, which is a little more what we're looking for. Now, this is where I'm going to show off some stuff here. So, analog controls will appear when there's an analog interface in a game. Now, the things we want to look at, the increment speed thing is basically how fast is this going to travel across. So you've got a gauge at the bottom that shows you what that looks like. This is default, by the way. The sensitivity, on the other hand, is how much does it travel when you give it a big whirl. Now in this game, you're just rolling it back and forth. So really, it doesn't, you know, it's not too important. The sensitivity is, for this, looks fine to me, but you know, the proof is always going to be in the actual pudding. So let's see how we do. Okay. Da, 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 da. The question is, can I fly over fast enough? You know, the divide button I can never do more than, I couldn't even do 2 for that long. It feels like it could accelerate a bit more. It's not, I mean, it's fine. I think I just need some more time with it. It's definitely better than using like see, there's like some hit detection issues, I think, where it felt like if a game had been tuned a little more generously for hit detection, I would have had that. But what can you do? And there's a couple sequels to it. They're more of the same, Revenge of Doe and Arkanoid Returns from the mid-90s. So Arkanoid, you know, not bad, not bad. I might try tweaking the speed a little bit, see if I can get it to feel, or the sensitivity might boost that. I don't know. I might give it a whirl. Blasteroids was definitely a game that I wanted to have this bespoke thing for. I've got 3 buttons here. So the big addition here is having, instead of a shield or hyperspace, you've got a transform button. So your ship can go into one of 3 different types. You get the heavy one that's more armored, which has more powerful shots but is slow to do everything. You get this nimble one that's fast but doesn't have as much armor, so you get destroyed faster, and the fighter, which is an all-around thing. And this shows you what you get. So there's 8 spaceships there. If it has a little flashy thing, it means you get energy. So you look at the top, there's an energy meter. Oh, and I'm taking damage. You're getting hit by rocks. So you only get one ship, one life, but you got an energy meter. So you shoot some of these rocks, they're going to drop an energy thing. There's one floating over there. You grab that, you get some energy. The problem is, chasing it will also involve using energy. And of course, they want you to put more quarters in and you get more, you know, so a little bit of a quarter suck aspect to it. Getting a little more serious now. There's the ship, you shoot the UFOs, you take a few shots to kill them, but you get a power-up. In this case, it could be a few different things. I think there's like a twin shot. This one gives you a shield, so you take less damage. I really need to get that. There we go. Oh, there's the twin gun, so you take a couple of hits. Oh, I'm running out of juice. It'd be great if I could actually... I mean, you will drift a bit, but not enough. Yeah, so I got clobbered. From Cinematronics, who brought us Star Castle. Really pretty game. Ah, I didn't hit the shield button in time. So there's that central reactor that gets bigger and bigger once you shoot it a lot. But you need to kill all the enemies, these little weird shapes, before you can get out. Now let's shoot the energy barrier here. Now, you'll see there's a map at the top, so I went out that exit so that I could get to that spur. So what exit you take matters. Oh, no, I didn't press the shield button. Ah, not an easy game. This was originally a game that like Space Invaders, was a rear project, or used a mirror, so the monitor was actually sitting like in the bottom of the cabinet facing up, and what you were playing was a mirror that was angled to show you the image, so that way they could have this colorful background. And MAME has a feature where if you have the separate file as the artwork, it will create that effect. That's one of the flashing buttons. Alright, so there's my little ship in the upper right. It does change size. You bounce off the walls. I remember playing this a lot. I enjoyed this game. This is either, I think this is a Valley title, or Midway title, original. Although these companies tended to ship a lot of like, you can spin around, look at me go, woo! But these games are pretty chaotic, as I recall. You just, the slow motion shots are kind of cool because you're basically like spreading the love. And you can see here's like a ticking clock. That ship that's shooting with the triangle inside will mutate into another form that is more lethal and faster. Unfortunately, I keep flying into the bullets. And every time I die, I appear on the other side. Now I'm going this side, it could go the other way, but going in from behind allows me to do a better shot at killing these things without getting my face shot off. Oh, there it goes. Oop, it turned into a bunch of triangles, little lines sticking out of it. Let's give it a little more volume. Brilliant, look at that. Look at how beautiful it is. These colorful vector graphics. I mean, Sega did some really interesting arcade games. And the original arcade game, it was a big sit down, and you had the spinner on the left hand and 4 buttons on the right. In this case, I decided to put the spinner on my right hand because it's not a great sample, but it's something. Right, so the spinner rotates the ship around, with my phasers, and I thrust, and the button, there's a photon control and a warp. Warp is the blue bar you can see. That's that, so I can go. The red Klingons will just target the star base, and the purple ones will hone in on you, if you can see the colors in that map. I don't know if the color repro on this. If this thing is that good, if you want, and you hit the star base, you'll get your shields restored if you got shot before, and you get a photon if you use one of those. And I will be using a photon soon. Because there's going to be a level that has there is a level that has a load of ships. And you want to kind of like I just think this is a great game. I don't know. And you're sitting in the cockpit doing it, you have the speakers at your ears. It's great. See if I can get to Nomad. Here we go. Here's Nomad. Nope. That could have been bad. If you don't kill Nomad right away, it keeps dropping mines. Oh, I got shot. Get to the station. I don't know what that was. Some kind of other enemy ship from a TV show, I think.
Entering sector 2. Damage very bad, sir. Entering sector 2.
Oh, give me some juice.
Damage very bad.
Oh, I hit him and that was enough to kill me. I accidentally sideswiped the Klingon ship. It wasn't enough to get a high score though. Wow. Come on, man. Did you lose 65,000 and change? And weirdly, like a lot of Atari games, this is a hit the button to let your shots go fully. If you spam the button, it will not go far. You have a whole fleet that you're controlling as one unit at the bottom. The ships would get destroyed, but you can pick up more. And if you look at the top of the screen, you'll see a ship icon above my score that has a number above it, which in this case is 9. So those are additional ships. The configuration change is happening automatically, by the way. I'm not sure what makes that determination. So the game will periodically give you freebies, but you got to line up and hit them. There's little cups that you might not be able to see because of how faint this is. But if I hit the other button, I can pull in ships from the reserve over there. So the game keeps going between this, the top-down view, and this type of pseudo first-person until you run out of ships. That means your reserve as well. I think it will automatically populate from the reserve if all your ships on screen are destroyed, but I'm not 100% sure about that. So I don't like to take chances, and I will, if I start losing ships, I will hit the button the reserve button to pull in ships from the reserve. And after so many, and it's the same enemy types every time, right? They just look a little different. So you still get this horrible laser thing, which is brutally efficient at killing all your stuff. Alright, so I already have everything. I should have not done that. I could have picked up a couple free ones. Oh, and then you've got to follow this. So you've got this green triangle you might not be able to see depending on how the video is appearing. And you want to stay in the middle. There. So now I've only got a 3-ship formation. That's a lot. Oh, now I got 2. And now I got none. Anyway, So there you go. I turned it all the way down to 10. Now the thing about Tempest is that there is a bit in between stages where you can spin the thing around. Now in the arcade, when you spin the spinner, you can see the thing going round and round, right? If you have this on 100, it flickers all over the frickin' place. In fact, it will start going in reverse. It's like it's overwhelming the system. It can't tell what direction you're spinning after a while. When you're playing with it at 100 sensitivity, it is playable. But you don't want to take your hand off the dial. You can, like, as long as you keep your hand on it, you're controlling the amount of travel that it works. So I've played it with that, but when I put it on 100, see, like, this is manageable. And you can see I'm moving it. Oh, I get shot immediately. Well done for me. But you can see that I can manage it, and I can do the flippity flip. And of course, with an arcade stick, you can find your buttons. So you can do pretty well with this. So, you know, I can flip this back and forth. So that's the only thing you really need to tweak. With Tempest, you need to tweak the sensitivity of the spinner so that it's not on completely 8. But this is one of my favorites. I used to love this game. It's just the geometry of the shapes and everything. Really just beautiful. So that's what you want to see when you're coming back and forth, is you want to be able to see the, I knew that was going to happen. This game takes a little bit of focus, so I'm not quite as chatty as I was before. Oh, went right into it. New high score. I haven't played MAME all the time, so these scores aren't really representative of my real arcade high scores, because I just don't put the time in. But this is where this thing really shines. It's so elegant, and the action on it is super smooth. It's a good spinner. It's got a slight indent, so if you like putting the, controlling with just one finger on top, you can. Okay. The good thing is that these things are saved, it remembers them. I plug this thing back into my hub and I don't have to change the settings again. Okay. I'll just set it at the beginning. This is, again, it's like the regular game, but it's slightly different shapes. And then you get these weird, oh, it's a teardrop, And kudos to these, because back in the day, there were operators used to get mods. I don't know if they came up with them themselves or there's someone selling them to put a little more life into their games. That's how Pac-Man Plus came about. A lot of weird Pac-Man variants. There's one with Pac-Man's instead of Pac-Man, it looks like a multicolored version of Popeye. Popeye. Get that one? That's weird. I almost acted like a potentiometer where I actually couldn't turn counterclockwise anymore for some reason. But this is just a fun little variant. Tempest, I never saw this. I don't think I ever saw this one in the arcade. I did see all these weird Pac-Man variants. I did play Pac-Man Plus. The Popeye Pac-Man. I played both of those in my local, and they were just bizarre. Probably the most recognizable one for a lot of old timers is the super fast Ms. Pac-Man. There was a Ms. Pac-Man that went light speed. You could play through a Pac-Man board in minutes. I mean, look at some of these maps. This is crazy. these levels, you're playing like a keyboard or something. Ah, come on. Now this one's a spiral, so it doesn't end, which is not, super groovy, eh? A little panic super zapper there. This is super funky. Now this, if you are a ROM hunter, you want this one, it's Tempest Tubes. Again, this is a paddle game. Now if I bring up the analog controls for this, I haven't played with them, but it is, paddle sensitivity, increment, blah, blah, blah. And that shows up fine. If I do the sensitivity, great. The one thing that I haven't figured out where is the choose your frickin' game button? If you look on the control panel for an actual Super Breakout, there are two different knobs. One of them is the paddle control on the left. The other is a knob that's basically a 3-position switch to choose between the different game types. This is cavity, there's progressive, and then there is double, where you have 2 paddles stacked on top of each other. And you will not see, there's no control for that. Now how am I choosing what game I want to play? So it seems to toggle between them automatically. No, this is double. But you're supposed to be able to toggle between these and pick the frickin' game you want to play. But I'll be blasted if I can figure it out. So again, in the Atari 50 there's a switch for that. But unfortunately in the Atari 50 your choice is play with a trackpad. Not 100% satisfying. Play with an analog stick, also not satisfying. Play with a D-pad, really not satisfying. Suck. Now, mouse support has been added to the Evercade. So now I'm like, oh man, they're going to put it in so you can play Super Breakout properly on the Evercade, and gee whiz, I gave away my copy of Atari Collection 1, which on eBay is going for like 70 quid. So I'm like, it's going to be one of those instances where I'm like, gee whiz, guys, if you reissue it, I'll buy it a second time. And this time I'll keep it. So, hasty purchasing, that's a fault of mine. Hasty getting rid of, another one. Someday I'll tell you the story of Resident Evil 4 and how many times I purchased that on the Wii. That's, but I'm dealing with it. I'm dealing with it. Brutal. Unforgiving. I mean, look at the size of the paddle. It is so tiny. You've really got to be in your best form to play this. Unlike Arkanoid, you've got to, Although I will say this hit detection on this is a lot better than Arkanoid. I'm not feeling hard done by that. Hey, that should have been a hit, and it passed through the edge of my paddle. But you do kind of have to be pretty good at predicting the trajectory once it starts speeding up. It has sped up a little bit, but once I break through that top layer into the center, it's going to get really stupid. The paddle, thankfully, isn't going to get smaller, but it ain't going to get bigger, and I really wish it would get bigger for that. Let's see if I can clear a layer at least. That's like my litmus. If I'm playing progressive Super Breakout, if I can get through a layer, I know I'm getting a good game. Almost. I mean, I broke through, but I didn't clear it. So there you have it. Bespoke spinner joystick combo from RetroGameBoyz to finish things out. A little demo. Great quality piece of kit. The spinner's really good. I haven't tried LayerFab's thing. I'm sure that one's good too. It's only a 2-button, so strictly, good for a game like Tempest. But a lot of these, or TaxScan, but a lot of your spinner games are using 3 buttons, like Blasteroids, like Cosmic Chasm. So mileage may vary, but the LayerFab one, it looks clean. It's using like the graphics similar to the control panel on a arcade Tempest machine, and it's not too dear, and it's got a nice look to it. It's a black shiny plastic spinner knob on it and black buttons. So give them a look. LayerFab, if you're in the UK, certainly. I don't know if he will ship to the States and how much that would cost. You'll have to find out for yourself. Certainly, when I got my kit from RetroGameBoyz, I would recommend, if you're in the UK and you are getting from the United States, he offers multiple shipping options. UPS, United Parcel Service, the brown van with the yellow writing, will ship to the UK and you will get it faster. However, the 1 or 2 times I've had stuff shipped via UPS, they do impose a charge for handling and customs. So whatever you paid, including postage, they are going to add another, depending on what the size of the thing is. I can't remember what it was that I got, but it was something like an extra, 50 quid or something like that, 30 quid. Oh, it was the games from our good friends at Audacity Games. Atari cartridges that I had already spent like 60 quid on or something. UPS thought, you know what, you really need to spend another 30 on those. So, but I got the choice from RetroGameBoyz. I said, let's just do U.S. Postal Service. You still get a tracking number. It might take longer, but when I got my controllers, and I had no additional customs charges or handling charges. Just, postman showed up one day and went, here you go. If you got the means, it's worth an investment in these things. These guys, are really doing great stuff with 3D printing. The tech has come a long way in the last 20 years. So if you like arcade gaming, or if you want like a custom controller, RetroGameBoyz does controllers for ColecoVision and for Intellivision, I believe, using arcade parts. And they'll put a keypad in it. I think they have. I think they do a 5200 one as well, possibly. Give them a look. And LayerFab, good stuff. I mean, you really like Defender as much as I do. Treat yourself. Get that control deck. Anyway, keep on gaming, folks.